Here's something you should know about motocross. It isn't one single sport. It's a whole bunch of different disciplines that push dirt bikes to their absolute limits. They perform insane stunts, set world record jumps, and race on the world's roughest terrain. But then they also do this a lot. You may have noticed that this move in particular has overtaken the motorcycle scene. It's called the whip, and everybody's doing it. It's done in trials, freestyles, motocross, and even BMX. The purpose of this move isn't very clear, unless you really have a good understanding of what the rider is trying to do. Because the truth is, the whip, as flashy as it looks, actually has a good purpose behind it. And if done right, it gives riders a massive advantage.
And here's Stewart with a big whip. Watch Stewart to the inside. Stewart inside and recuts back.
The reason this move is called the whip is quite simple, right? The riders whip the bike in one direction and then whip it back to an upright position before landing on the ground. Explaining it is easy, but actually doing it is a whole different story.
The whip is difficult because it requires a rider to stop the bike's momentum in mid-air, which would be easy if the bike didn't weigh 215 pounds.
The whip has been around since at least the early 70s, with riders like Jojo Keller and Danny Chandler whipping all of the time.
But it was this rider, James Stewart, who took this to a whole new level.
Before James Stewart, it was never really clear whether whipping had actual benefits or if riders were doing this just for fun. James took this move and made it into an actual technique to win more races.
There are two types of whips you'll see in motocross. The ones that are really high up, and the ones that are really close to the ground. These ones are called scrubs, and this is what James Stewart is known for. A scrub is where a rider lays down the bike as close to the ground as possible just before taking a jump.
They're sort of skimming, or I guess scrubbing, the very peak of the jump.
This subtle move does a number of things. It reduces the impact of the jump, decreases airtime, and allows riders to make contact with the ground sooner. This, if done correctly, allows a rider to take a jump quicker and more efficiently. But hold on, there's the other kind of whip, the one that happens way up here.
Big whips are really fun to watch, and if you think that riders just do it because it looks cool, you'd be right.
When it comes to the flashy whips, there are two variations. The turn down whip, where a rider turns their bike backwards, and the C-bounce whip, where a rider flips their bike upside down.
There are entire competitions devoted to this.
Talented riders can do these so well that it looks like they're defying the laws of physics.
How does that work?
But they aren't. A number of things are happening here to make sure this move is possible.
Dirt bikes have a really good center of gravity. The heaviest part of the motorcycle, the engine, acts as a pivot for the rest of the bike and the rider.
This makes turning and twisting the bike in mid-air possible. At the beginning of a whip, a rider will extend their body to go in one direction and then immediately twist the bike to go in the other direction. The rider sort of leads the bike, and the bike, being so well balanced, follows the rider's movements. But there is something else happening when riders whip, and this is something that you can hear more than you can see. The throttle.
You can hear all these guys using the motor, that's the way they get the bike back.
This is a trick riders use to minimize what's known as the gyroscopic effect, or in other words, to break momentum. Riders do everything in their power to stop the bike's momentum and get it back to the center. So they twist, they pull, and they throttle a lot. But even the big whips can be very useful in motocross too. Whips in motocross serve a few functions. It allows a rider to correct bad takeoffs, it allows them to prepare for a sharp turn after the jump, and it can also give them some extra airtime. Motocross high jump is very interesting because there you really get to see the advantage of the C-bounce whip. Riders turn completely sideways to try and get the bike as high as possible to clear the bar. And of course, whips are just really entertaining to watch, so a lot of the time it's really just a good way to get the crowd riled up and to have some fun.